Well, the day that I was incarcerated was September the 9th, 2005. I remember that. I'll never forget that day. I remember meeting with FBI agents and them taking me to the roundhouse and never letting me go.
Definitely have to have a passion for this kind of work. I mean, it sounds cliche, but you do. You want to help people. You want to make a difference. You see a wrong and you want to right it.
I wrote everybody, but the Innocence Project, I can't even explain it. They just stepped up. Once you got the Innocence Project behind you, it lets the judicial system know that it was a mistake and it's something that should be corrected.
We opened our doors in April of 2009, but before then, the word was already out in the prisons, so we opened up with a stack of mail to get started.
And when we walked in and turned on the lights, there were 300 letters waiting for us, 300 people looking for our assistance.
The origin story really begins with my relationship with David Rudofsky. He probably is the first one to bring the Innocence movement really to my attention.
There was some talk here about perhaps starting an Innocence Project for Pennsylvania.
Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld at the Innocence Project in New York, the original Innocence Project, were inundated with Pennsylvania cases and requested a Pennsylvania Innocence Project be created. So that was kind of the impetus.
I was writing the New York Innocence Project, so when the Innocence Project opened up in Pennsylvania, you guys probably had like 10 letters from me, probably the first one writing it because I was anticipating it.
David and I, when we talked about it, we were both wrong and right about the two main things.
He was naive about the fiscal side. I was probably somewhat naive about the legal barriers. But at the end of the day, we were able to reasonably surmount both mountains.
The hunger for it was palpable. We'd have 20, 40, 50 lawyers at a time who wanted to meet with us. I'd go out to community groups, to churches and others, just to kind of start spreading the word. So the community response was absolutely incredible.
To work in public interest, you have to be compassionate. I mean, I think anyone who works in public interest, you don't do it for the money.
Just coming home, the Innocence Project has been so supportive in many different ways. I can pick up the phone and call you guys about insight to some resources or just how my day's going, and especially with the one-on-one therapy session.
I'm committed to the Innocence Project for the rest of my life. If society does not care about those who are incarcerated, those who are incarcerated will not care about society.
When I was released, the victims, they were allowed to say their piece. I happily, want to always afford any victim that space. The culprit, to me, is actually the system. They're the perpetrators, right? You can't circle the system up in the restorative justice form. You can ask them, why'd you do this to me? But being innocent, I'm also a victim.
And if you told people that the mission was to secure freedom and release from incarceration for people imprisoned for crimes they had not committed, it was sort of like a revelation to them. It seemed to be unmitigated. I mean, there was sort of no hesitation. How can I help?
There's still a great need because the inspiration and the idea for the project was right, and it touched people regardless, as I say, of their political convictions. And I think that's been the key to our success.
The biggest joy to me working here is when I can see it go from a name on a paper to years later having this individual walk in a door. I've been talking to you for years on the phone and here you are. And to give them a great big hug, it just makes it humanizes it.
Homecoming means the beginning. It means it's anew. It means success. I'm already triumphant. I'm home. It wasn't easy at all, not the least bit. And so coming home, I feel victorious and I feel brave. I feel like as long as I just adhere to humility, I'm going to be okay.